Hey guys, wagwan and welcome to a glimpse into my life. In today's video, I will be dissecting the lackluster movie rendition of Avatar: The Last Airbender and explaining why I think it doesn't hold a finger to the original while drawing the Avatar cast. If that's something you're interested in watching, let's get going.
Ever since the day that you went away, you've been sending flowers to me, flowers today, flowers.
Before I begin, however, this week's video is sponsored by me. It is sponsored by my book. I've written a book and I've made a video about it. If you are interested and looking around for any books right now, you can go and check that one out, either by the Amazon link in the description or the link to the video explaining the book in the eye and the description, maybe. I don't know. Just letting you guys know that I can't actually draw. Like, I don't know why I decided to draw in this video, but you know, do something new or try something new with your friends. There's literally nobody here. I don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah. As I said before, The Last Airbender is a 2010 movie rendition or adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender first season, book 1, Water. It was expected to be the first of a trilogy, seeing as Avatar: The Last Airbender had 3 seasons. But even before the talk of a third movie could come into being, and while people were discussing the prospects of a second movie, said second movie was cancelled and any further renditions in the future. Mostly due to the movie's poor performance and heavy criticism by literally everyone ever. This is copied by Fair Use. I will be criticizing and commenting on the movie The Last Airbender, hence I don't want to be copyrighted, so please leave me alone. This drawing looks like a drawing of Megamind. I'm so sorry, Ang.
Surely you can see that you could never make her happy.
Well, it wasn't very good in my opinion by the people that should be, you know, carrying the show, but at the same time it was probably the best part. I feel like a lot of the actors just did the best that they could do given the script and their direction from the directors and the writers and stuff like that. I feel like Katara's actor, she carried the show, the emotion, the facial expression, she gave it all. In my opinion, she did a really good job. But I think the ones that did the least good, the worst, are actually the movie's main protagonist and antagonist, the literal hero and the villain. Like, the dude playing Aang just wasn't very convincing in my opinion. Like, there are a lot of times where I felt like he could have tried to sell the confusion, the upset, the shock a little bit better. And then for Zuko's character, or the person that acted Zuko, I just feel like there was a lot of overacting involved. Like, I know Zuko was a shouter. He threw tantrums all the time, especially in the first season. But I just felt very weird, or maybe it just was out of place. Okay, maybe it's just like the contrast between both actors that was throwing me off. Because here we have one that's not very convincing, and then maybe on Zuko's part one that is way too convincing. Yes, in the animations we don't have the person's facial expressions to go off of, but I feel like even without that they did a good job in expressing the particular emotion that they needed to express just with their voice. Yeah, we had the help of the animation for their facial expression, but it's not gonna sell if your voice sounds unconvincing. So the actors in the show definitely, in the series, definitely did a better job than the actors in the movie. That's just my personal opinion. I'm so sorry, Ang, this drawing is ugly. I expected it to look better than this. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I thought it would look better. CGI probably costs a lot of money. Not probably, I know CGI costs a lot of money, and I don't feel like it was terrible. I just felt like it was a bit awkward in some places, or they could have just changed how certain things looked. Not that they should have spent more money or spent less money even. I just didn't like how it looked. So Appa, I thought Appa was very ugly. I don't know, it's just a very realistic version of Appa. No, we don't need to see it. We don't need to see it. In the spirit world, I just felt like it just looked like a sheet, a blue sheet, and you point light at it. It didn't look good, nor did it look, it just didn't look good. I don't know how to explain it. It just didn't look good to me. Then there was the bending in this particular part. I feel like the bending is so underrepresented in this movie, even though that's what the whole thing should be about. Even the parts where they do have it, as I said before, I know CGI and whatever it is that it takes for them to make these kind of animations isn't easy or cheap. But Jesus, this just looked, it was just funny to me. This is where I genuinely start to have a huge problem with the movie, because I can forgive bad animation sometimes, especially when it's not terrible, and I can forgive bad acting a lot of the times, because trust me, I know I've watched some movies where the acting wasn't that great, but I ended up enjoying the movie anyways because it was just a good movie. I know I spent my whole childhood watching Disney shows when not everybody there was up to par, so like I can't be talking too heavy on the acting, you know. But when it comes to making consistent characters and people that make sense, I have a lot to say. I'm gonna say it, my drawing doesn't look bad, it just doesn't look like Aang. First of all, Iroh, terrible. It was just a terrible depiction of Iroh. It was just not very good. In the series, Iroh is more or less a pacifist, which is kind of ironic, but he's more or less portrayed as a pacifist. He's somebody that for the most part is against what Zuko wants. He's funny, he is everything that this character is not, basically. And there's this part you can tell in the movie that they try to go back and forth between what he is in the series and this more serious man that he's portrayed as here. There's even this part where Zuko is fighting and you see him have the tea, and which is something he would do in the series, but he never brings up tea again. He makes one joke, heavy on the joke. It was just so inconsistent in the movie itself, but also very disappointing when compared to the series, Iroh in the series. And we have Fire Lord Ozai. I just thought he wasn't scary enough. I just wasn't intimidated by him. And I watched Avatar a month and a half ago, and I was afraid of the actual one. Azula, she was just having herself a good little time. Like, there's no evil present in her eyes at all. She just looks like she's having fun, which is evil in and of itself, but I just didn't feel like the evil was portrayed well enough. But she's only shown twice in this movie because she isn't really a character in book 1, which made me feel bad for her, because they show her at the end of this movie as to say this would be the start of her storyline for their sequel, but it doesn't come. But those are kind of trivial. The biggest miss in character and characterization for me were Sokka and Aang. Sokka doesn't make one joke throughout this entire movie. If anyone is unaware, Sokka's whole thing throughout season 1 and 2, or book 1 and 2, was that he was the funny guy. So where is Sokka funny joke man? Like, where is he? And to be honest, I don't like his ponytail. Aang's notorious playfulness, childishness, and just his jokester behavior is completely lost and practically non-existent Again, they try to make up for the stark difference between the series and the movie by making him be playful once, but it doesn't end up doing anything, because if it's there for one time and never there again, you're not going to associate him with that character trait. And you didn't hear it from me, but that scene in and of itself was just a bit awkward. I feel like it was directed so oddly. The duo, Sokka and Aang, their playfulness and their dynamic together, constantly clashing with Katara's need or tendency to be bossy or motherly, made them feel like a team, like a family, where people naturally fill roles. Without that, this whole ensemble felt more like co-workers, more like they were just there to get the job done, than the core friendship that they have displayed in Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is so disappointing when the group friendship dynamic was such a big part of the whole entire series. There is just no dynamic here, really. Lastly, something you notice from the literal beginning when Katara is narrating the thing that she narrates at the beginning, yeah, that there is a difference in pronunciation in some of the characters. For example, Aang is Aang, Iroh is Iro, Sokka is Sokka, and Agni Kai is Agni Ki. At first I thought it was a copyright issue that they had to resolve and kind of change some of the names, but after some research I realized that it was actually the director's choice. So the director took some creative liberty and decided to change the pronunciation of some of the characters and some of the things in order to make them more authentic to the Asian roots of the show. I definitely understand and applaud that, actually, because I feel like that would have been a good step to take. But doesn't it defeat the whole purpose when he goes and casts white actors?
Surely you can see that you could never make her happy.
People love to argue that Avatar isn't set on Earth and therefore race is insignificant, even though it's common knowledge that Avatar: The Last Airbender is an allegory, therefore referencing past and real people and occurrences. I think the director M. Night Shyamalan wanted somebody to praise him for putting black people in this movie at some point, but I don't even want to see them, because Avatar is a place where Asians are the main characters and basically the only characters. So tell me why the three main characters were white, serving some real white savior madness up in here. I feel like people say something like he's trying to ground it in reality, so he's trying to represent people of different races and colors and groups, or that the people's color doesn't mean anything to him and he's just trying to find good actors. If that's so, why did he take his little creative liberty and literally switch the colors of the good guys, the Water Tribe, and the literal bad guys, the Fire Nation? Fire Nation are the undeniably antagonist, bad side, villain side of this movie, further enforcing harmful stereotypes about people that are darker, making them be the villains of the story. And I don't think giving a black person a non-positive role is inherently bad, but if everybody in your movie that is good is white and then or light skin and then the villain is not, then we have a problem. But as serious as I find this problem, it's only my second biggest frustration with this movie.
Could never make her happy.
Guys, I don't know how to draw Katara and Sokka. Like, I feel like Aang and Momo look pretty good, if I may say so myself. But I don't know how to draw anybody else. Firstly, the directing was really static in my opinion. Like, a lot of the shots weren't very creative. especially in this one scene where they're having this supposed to be like eye-opening conversation, and they're just having a boring back and forth of the camera. It honestly made the dialogue seem very stiff and like cut off instead of having it flow the way how I felt it should have. Yes, sometimes the directional choice is to make it seem cut off, but I don't feel like that was very fitting for this conversation.
Thanks for saving me.
Lucky.
I probably should get home. Oh, I'll be worried.
You're not still upset?
Not as much as I was.
Then there's this really close-up scene, and I heard that it's like a staple of M. Night Shyamalan's work, but sheesh, why is the camera so close and for no reason? Whoa, Katara's head is big. No, I think I should take up something in drawing. Like, I'm so good. Like, I feel like if I actually drew from time to time and like took it seriously, like I could really do this, guys. I feel like I could like really do this. Then there's this really awkward 15-second stare that Katara has to pause her narrating to accommodate.
We arrived at the Northern Water Tribe. We presented ourselves to the royal court. My brother and the princess became friends right away.
Like, you made it very obvious that they were into each other. Can we move on now? Oh no, Katara, you don't look too good enough. Yeah, the writing is weak from the get-go. Like, it just comes out the gate not very good. You can learn a lot about the characters, specifically Katara and Sokka, from the very first few minutes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. You can see where the movie tries to replicate this, but like they fall very short when the dialogue is just so weird. It's really underwhelming and just overall disappointing. Realize very quickly that the movie is going to lack fervor when they take out the literal best part of episode 1.
I need to ask you something.
What?
Please, come closer.
What is it?
Will you go penguin sledding with me?
Like I mentioned before, barely any humor except for this one weird hit or miss joke.
He was bending tiny stones at us from behind a tree. It really hurt.
The lack of humor not only feels very disingenuous to the original, but also causes the movie to drag on. Like, the plot is serious stuff. So you can either make a good script by counteracting that with appropriate jokes at the appropriate timing, or continue with the serious theme and have a solid acting performance that accompanies an even more solid script. Fortunately, this movie has none of those. In my opinion, this movie's greatest downfall, even without comparing it to the series, is the progression of events. My first major problem lies with the test that Uncle Iroh and Zuko give to Aang. Now, this didn't make any sense to me. They don't explain what the test is, and they don't explain to the viewers what they get out of the test. Now, this test is to see if Aang is the Avatar, but they don't explain that, nor do they explain the instruction, or it's at least not explained clearly enough for the viewers, or at least me, to understand. So different elements are placed in front of Aang, and I assume that they're trying to see if he can bend it, except that doesn't make any sense, because just because an element is placed in front of you doesn't mean it's going to bend. And if this test is set up in a way so that the element that they can bend, once it's placed in front of them, no matter what they try to do, they can't stop themselves from bending, then that should have been explained. Because a girl like me, knowing that this man is shouting and looking for the avatar, and knowing that I am the avatar, if they put something in front of me that they want me to lift up, I'm just gonna not do it. I know the reason behind this testing is explained in the blurb that Katara narrated at the beginning, but if that's all we needed to understand this story, then this movie shouldn't exist. Then around the 30-minute mark, we have this thing where Sokka and Katara and Aang are just explaining, like standing up and explaining, like giving all the information that the viewers need. Not only is this a tell instead of do kind of mistake, but I also find it very frustrating because this is when the movie truly starts to go downhill. It goes from merely only being boring and a little hard to understand to messy and unorganized. Yes, I realize they had to do this because there's a whole heap of plot and a dense amount of information that you need from the original. But if they were going to do this, then they should have went straight into a fast-paced, more montage kind of progression. Yes, they do that, but it takes 20 minutes before they actually reach to the Northern Water Tribe. And during those 20 minutes, there's just a whole heap of things that don't make sense. I think you'd have to watch the movie for yourself to understand why that part is just like, it grates my gears. So on this journey to the Northern Water Tribe, Aang gets captured in a way that makes no sense to me. So basically he needs help with bending, I presume. I honestly don't remember why he decides to go, but he decides to go to this temple to just see what's going on. Honestly, I don't even remember. I can't even talk about that part properly. While he was there, there's a man that basically lures him down into this part where the Fire Nation was ready to capture him. Now, how did the man know that he was gonna go there? Aang decided to go there on a whim. How did Aang, not Aang, but that old man and the Fire Nation know that he was on his way there? And even if they saw him even if they saw him going there, they wouldn't have known where exactly he was going, because, you know, humans can go anywhere, you know. Anyways, he gets out, and it's during this time and a little bit after where we see a severe overlapping of plots, storylines, and different scenes. And I understand why. As I said before, a lot of information from the original that needs to be in the movie, but I feel like they needed to pick and choose and be a bit more meticulous in what made it into the movie and not, because Avatar: The Last Airbender was very methodical. Like, everything made sense. It had to go in such an order so that it made sense. It had to build up with a certain amount of excitement, anxiety, and worry so that the end goal you could feel satisfied from seeing them in victory, or you could be appropriately worried when they get captured after something that they've planned out this whole time for, because you got time to be invested in that particular storyline. With this, you have things all over the place and things being put together in no correct or methodical or a sequence that makes sense, without the story leading up and the correct progression of events, like Zuko attempted assassination when Zuko was the blue spirit and deciding to help Aang, when Aang and Katara really hone in on their waterbending skills, which, as I said before, are highly underrepresented in this entire film. Without the correct progression, those things seem so rushed and so meaningless. which is the frustrating part. Those things were so important in the series, and they come off as so you will forget about it when you finish watching the show, because they placed no meaning on it, and it had no time to be important because they were trying to fit everything in a short amount of time. I just don't think 20 episodes of Masterpiece can be successfully condensed into 103 minutes.
Surely you can see that you could never make her happy.
As I said, on its own, I feel like The Last Airbender's biggest downfall is its progression, is its story progression, and how the events overlap and intertwine. I just don't think it was very thought out. I think they were just trying to put every single thing from the show into the movie without realizing that that wasn't possible, and deciding to prioritize more important events. But I feel its overall biggest downfall is the fact that the original exists. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's good, but if you can go online and watch the same exact thing that's done 100% better, then obviously this is gonna look even worse than it already is. Not to mention, I got very distracted on my 3 watches. Like, it couldn't even command my attention for that long. The first one, by the almost the hour mark, I just couldn't pay attention anymore. I honestly don't know what happened.
Surely you can see that you could never make her happy.
Since I want to end this on a good note, I'll talk about the good parts of the movie. Okay, so there was one thing that I genuinely think I liked, and it was how they represented some of the different nations. I thought the buildings and stuff were cool, especially the air nomad temples. I thought those were so no, not all of them, some of them. I thought one of them I didn't like, but I thought most of them looked really cool. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say about why The Last Airbender is so bad compared to Avatar The Last Airbender. This is not that deep of a video. If you have anything to say, you can tell me, of course. If you agree or disagree, I'd like to know why and hear them in the comment. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it. Do you want to see my drawing though? This is it. How is it? I think it looks nice. Honestly, it's not that bad. I just don't think it looks like them, but I don't think it's a terrible drawing.